Thursday, August 5th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, DS Homebrews and ROMs. Let's do this.
Well, hello, Kineticon, or at least all the people who came to the Geeknights fold after seeing us at Kineticon.
Yeah, Kineticon wasn't that big. I guess it had more people than last year. At least it felt like it did. But
It's hard to say because Friday was real weak, but then Saturday busted out more so than I would have imagined.
Yeah, but it really, this Kineticon, more so than any con before, really felt like we had a big connection with either existing listeners as well as people who became fans of us at the con, or at least as far as I could tell.
Well, I think what happened was, a lot of you probably came to that 8 a.m. match game and discovered...
There was a good number of people in there. It wasn't packed like last year, but there was 50 to 100 people in that thing.
Yeah, but because we didn't actually run the match game, we did kind of, but we basically just kind of hung out at the front of the room for 2 hours.
Yeah, and they're not going to give us celebrity guests. A match game can only be an hour, really.
Yeah. Granted, had we known we weren't going to have guests, or we might have had something more ready to go than we did, but it...
Well, I would have rescheduled. I would have changed it. I would have had it not be match game. I would have done something else, and I would have only done it for an hour.
Yeah, but I can say one thing. It worked. It must have worked well because pretty much every panel throughout the day had a bunch of people who went to the previous panel and then some new people. And
yeah, at every panel, I announced what our remaining panels were, and people seemed to actually pay attention, and I guess they wrote it down or circled it on their schedules or something, because I saw the same faces many times throughout the day.
Now, before we go any further, I do want to point out, because I'm sure many of you, you went home, you went, oh yeah, that Geeknights thing, and now you're listening to this, the most recent episode. Geeknights is 4 nights a week, and this is Geeknights Tuesdays. So, Monday, science tech, Tuesday, gaming, which a lot of you are probably here for the gaming after the Burning Wheel events.
Yeah, it was great.
But many of you are probably here for Geeknights Wednesdays, anime, manga, comics. So stay tuned tomorrow night when we'll have our actual coverage of Kineticon.
Yep.
And Geeknights Thursdays, we talk about whatever. That's kind of the fun time. But... also,
it's kind of weird, though, to do the Kineticon coverage tomorrow because most of the con was gaming action.
I know. But anyway, the other thing is that Geeknights is 4 nights a week, but this summer we're currently on our sabbatical schedule. So we're actually doing 1 week Monday, Wednesday, the other week Tuesday, Thursday. So basically it's 4 separate shows and they update. You can look at the feeds on the website, figure them all out. If you got this far, you probably know how podcasts work.
Yeah, but this week we're going to do a Tuesday, Wednesday, just a little bit weird because the way the conventions are.
Yes, also...
in September, things should return to normal.
Yes, now these might be slightly atypical episodes too, just tonight and tomorrow, because 1, we were at Kineticon last weekend. 2, tomorrow night we were packing up, and then Thursday morning we're driving to Baltimore for Otakon, where we are doing another 5 panels.
Yeah, so if you want to listen to some more typical run-of-the-mill Geeknights episodes, go back a few weeks, a few months, maybe go on the site and search, for a topic that interests you, or check the categories on the left. Maybe you'll find something you like, and listen to a show about something that you already enjoy, and then you'll know if this is a show you want to listen to.
But to not continually tick off all the existing listeners with every time we go to a con, we talk about...
Hey, existing listeners!
Hey.
More boring talk you don't care about.
Yeah, and granted, at least from what I saw at Kineticon, it was surprising.
It's like making a guy who's beating the game sit through the tutorial.
But I gotta say, at Anime You Should See, that's usually an event where we don't expect our existing listeners to go to it, because they know what we're gonna say. But there were a lot of you in that audience. I guess I haven't really... We've done big con things, but we haven't done big con things as Geeknights. We've kind of been doing these panels that's just, we do this panel. But this time, the first time, we were like, hey, we are Geeknights. And there's a lot of you out there. It's kind of scary to see that many fans in one place.
Yeah, it's like some people are, forum listeners, but there are people who just listen and they went to the con.
In fact,
they never went in the forum or emailed us or anything.
Almost every person who came up to us like, oh my God, I listen. I've been listening for years. I'm like, yeah, so who are you in the forum? They're like, I don't post in the forum.
Yeah. Oh, anyway.
Yeah, but the one thing I gotta say is it was something else to be, it's our last panel of the night, the Beyond Dungeons & Dragons, which, by the way, for all you new listeners, we are doing that exact same panel, only for real, at the Penny Arcade Expo.
I don't see how the one we didn't do wasn't real.
Well, it'll
And
be
the one
for,
we did already wasn't real.
It'll be for a much larger audience, I guess.
Yeah, other than that, it'll be mostly the same.
Mostly the same. I'm gonna have a better example than a hammer and a nail versus a hammer and a bus. That's Seinfeld. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that.
But yeah, we're doing that at the Penny Arcade Expo. I highly recommend, if you happen to be going to the Penny Arcade Expo at the end of the month, or I guess the beginning of next month, the end of the month.
Yeah, it's Labor Day weekend.
Yes. And we're Saturday, August 30th, from 6 to 7 in Satellite Theater Room 307. Anyway, but it was something to, that panel, the panel before us is running
I
a
hope
little
that
late.
if it's Saturday night, I hope it doesn't conflict. I mean, I'm going to this con and I'm doing one panel. So really, most of the other time there, I'm going to be trying to enjoy the con. And I got some things I want to do. I want to go to the opening keynote. I want to go to the concert. I want to go to, Gabe Draw's Hot Dog Fairy. Maybe I want to see the Omegathon final. There are certain things that happen at PAX that I want to do. I hope Saturday night that our panel doesn't conflict with, say, a concert or something. That would suck the ass.
I haven't looked at all. But anyway, it was, we go in the room and the person before us is going a little long. And we're in the room like, all right, what do we do? Blah, 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 blah. Laptop out, getting ready. And then we walk outside the room to see the situation and to see all of you people lined up all the way down the
it's like
hallway.
we had a line and the panel that was in there had 5 people and they were giving us guff. I'm like, look, we got like 100 people. You got like 5 people. You can just stop your panel. No one.
Yeah, but the other shout out I want to give is that, Alex was doing Burning Wheel demos for pretty much the entire con.
And he got mad bored. Well, he didn't get mad bored, but he was a little, because he only brought the sword and he didn't bring any other scenarios. So he was doing the same thing over and over again.
But at the same time, every sword went completely different. Like
I ran a sword. Everyone was amicable. I was like, what the fuck? Why are we amicable?
He ran one at the same time, and like everyone drew swords within about 30 seconds.
I got some plans the next time I play the sword.
I gotta say, though, the elf was doing surprisingly well overall.
I don't know. I thought I heard that like all the elves got chumped except for one.
Well, one elf went out in a blaze of glory.
Well, there was a rat that got set on fire, right?
Yeah, that was also a blaze of glory. But to all of you who played Burning Wheel games at Kineticon because you saw our panel or you heard us talking about it, I hope you're listening because we talk about Burning Wheel kind of often now.
Go to burningwheel.com.
Yeah, and also Luke Crane, just in case, he's going to be at the Penny Arcade Expo.
Is he really?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, we're probably going to take the crowd, if we can, from the Beyond Dungeons & Dragons panel directly to Mr. Luke Crane, who will probably run a demo.
So he did confirm he was going to be there?
Yes, he was like, I told him, yeah, Kineticon, blah, 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 panel, and he basically said hot shit.
All right.
So, Kineticon coverage will be tomorrow night.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. So, we got any video game news here?
Oh, you want to go news time? All right, here we
should.
go. Check this out. So people have been talking, the virtual console's been a little weak lately. I mean, a lot of companies said, oh, yeah, our games are coming out of the virtual console. You know what came out of the virtual console?
What came out on the virtual console?
I think it was like Splatterhouse 2, not too bad.
Hey, Splatterhouse 3 is where it's
It might
at.
have been 3. I don't remember. One of the Splatterhouses. And the Sega Master System Sonic the Hedgehog.
Whoa.
Yeah, pretty bad. So, it's been pretty weak over there. And then, like, the WiiWare, I mean, some of the WiiWares were good, like, the Dr. Mario and the Lost Winds, but they put out a lot of their heavy hitters right away, and now they're bringing out the weak sauce. But next week, the word on the street is that the WiiWare game is going to be Strong Bad.
Now I imagine that this is going to be much like the Penny Arcade game, where the game will probably be all right, but it'll be carried primarily by theme.
Pretty much. I mean, the thing is, even when, the Homestar guys were doing their Vid Electrics, making like the Trogdor game and such, those games that they made were actually not bad.
They were better than the average Flash game you play online for 5 minutes.
That's what I'm saying. So if they make if they put their resources into making an entire game worth, This could be something worth paying. I mean, I haven't paid attention to Homestar in years. It sort of became the same joke over and over and lost its funny.
Kind of like, or at least to us, kind of like the Ask a Ninja.
Yeah, it's like
I almost said the Ninja Consultant. I'm like, no, that's not it. That's completely different.
No, but Ask a Ninja, it's like, I look forward to killing you soon. And it's like, okay, it was funny a whole bunch of times, but then eventually it's sort of the same thing over and over again, and I no longer laughed at it. And Homestar was the same way, but maybe I'll check this out. I think it's going to be on PC also, so maybe I'll check the PC action. I don't know. I'll think about it. But yeah, you should, if you got WiiWare, you might want to consider getting this, even if you're not a Homestar fan.
I remember the time I got WiiWare.
Yeah.
It all started when I drank 48 glasses of marinade.
Because if you don't, your Wii might lie dormant for quite a while.
I love the Wii, and the thing is, though, the DS has been my primary console pretty much since it came out, and the only thing that distracted me from the DS for any length of time was when I got Civ 4, and for the 2 days after Team Fortress 2 came out before I solved it.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before on the show, I'll say it again. It's like, I read comics, I read books, I watch anime, now my iPhone, right? I play Wii. I do all sorts of geeky things. I have a queue of geeky things. I program stuff, right, on my laptop. If there's a DS game that's good, everything else takes a back burner. I don't know what it is about the DS, but it's just my brain will always have me go for an unplayed good DS game before anything else. And you're going to see why that tendency is incredibly dangerous when we get to the real part of the show.
Well, you see, I think what that is, I think that is misplaced game desire from the fact, I mean, back before we were in the real world, when we were in college, as in infinite free time, zero responsibility, no money, so we couldn't go anywhere anyway. It's not like I commuted. So I'd want to play games. I would just sit down in front of a console in our house and play games. I would sit down and play a game like all the way through. But now I don't have time for that. I mean, I get home and I got to do the podcast. I got to, eat.
See, it's weird because if a really good Wii game comes out, like a Twilight Princess or a Metroid or something like that, I do sit down and play the whole thing. It happens. I come home every day and play it. But there hasn't been a game like that, really.
Well, see, the other thing is you get home, your schedule's a little different from mine, and getting up at like 4:30 in the morning really puts a damper on playing games at home when I could be outside.
Yeah.
Of course, it is also summer.
It is summer, but you know what? We always say, in winter we're going to play so many games. Then in winter we don't play any games.
Yeah, there were reasons for that. I mean, we were really kind of doing a lot of Geeknights work last winter.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
It's all right.
I
I feel as though it is not the DS that is causing the desire to play games to the exclusion of all else. It is the fact that because we in particular have a long commute and aren't home that often, the DS is always there, and there's nothing else to distract. I mean, think, when you're on the train, I got my laptop.
But I mean, even if I get a new DS game, like when I got Professor Layton, right? I would wake up, get on the train, not even listen to my typical morning podcast and play Professor Layton. I would get to work. As soon as I walked out the office door, I'd turn it on and play it on my way to the subway, on the train.
But see, it's the same thing
I got
for
home.
me.
I would get home. We would do the show. I would get in bed and play Professor Layton until it was beaten. As soon as it was beaten,
wait.
I put it down.
For me, it's the same thing with anything I get into that's good that I can do portably. So
Yeah,
when
but
I was
I mean-
watching Bokurano, right? I would pretty much get off of work, run to the train, sit down, start watching, skipping openers and closers, watch as much as I
Right,
could.
but I only really do it for DS games. I guess I did it for the Prince of Nothing also, but
Yes, you
I
did.
only really do it for DS games. Like, even if I have an amazing anime, I won't
said
do it.
not a few days ago you were doing it a little bit for Evangelion when
Yeah,
you were
but I wasn't
rewatching
watching
it.
Evangelion at home. It was only on the train only, not home. It wasn't as strong as a DS game is.
Yeah, plus you don't have the ultra immersion of Civ 4 destroying your life like I do right now.
I was playing the Civilization Revolutions.
Yeah, Civ Revolutions is a different game.
It is a different game.
It is. I'd say it's a completely different game. Now, they're very similar, and I'm not saying that one is more fun than the other one, but Civ 4 is definitely not the same game.
No, I didn't say they were the same game.
Yeah, and I've been feeling the Civ 4 drive madly.
All right.
All right, but I got to talk a little bit about it. Now, we talked not too long ago about this. Diablo 3 is coming out, and all the fans of Diablo basically.
You're not doing the news we have to do? I'm going to have to do another news.
Oh, no, we'll get to that.
All right.
Now, I'd say I got to talk about this because there's some screenshots, and this epitomizes everything I hate about the internet. So people saw what Diablo 3 is going to look like, and people who have never played Diablo before because, they're either younger than us or smarter than everyone who played Diablo back when it came out.
They're not smart. I mean, never having played Diablo doesn't make you smart.
I think
never
it does.
Going to play Diablo makes you smart.
But they saw, Diablo. Oh, it's based on some old game. Oh, it looks like WoW, the end. But people who had played the old Diablos looked at it and said, wow, those graphics are way too good. Fuck them.
Yeah.
And that bothers me a lot. But here's the deal. This is...
I mean, I'm usually the kind of person who says, graphics don't matter, that, it's gameplay is more important as long as the graphics, uphold the game.
But I tend to disagree a little bit in that very good atmosphere and very good graphic and immersion design can cover for a lot
but it's
of
mostly
gameplay design
the
flaws.
design, not the image quality. There's the two just very different things.
No, but there's a line. Eternal Darkness was an okay game that was made much, much better just because of the way, the style and everything. But if the graphics had been too much worse than it was, they couldn't have pulled off the style in the first place. It would have looked like those old walk around with tank controls games.
You know
polygons.
what? When you played those games way back in the day,
they weren't immersive at all.
Yeah, they were.
I guess if you were stupid.
No, like Half-Life 1, just as immersive Half-Life 2.
Half-Life 1, I don't think you understand the level of bad graphics I'm talking about. I'm talking about third-person view of an 8-polygon man in a 16-polygon world.
Okay, it's a little different. But
Anyway, so a bunch of fans decided to put together screenshots of what the game should look like.
Uh-huh.
And on the left, this is shit grammar. How it looks like, how it should look like.
Great.
That is bad. But on the left, I see a game that looks incredibly polished, and it looks kind of like WoW, and it looks really, really good. On the right, I see it looks like they just turned the saturation of the colors down, turned the contrast down, made it dark.
Well, because that's the thing, is they're not complaining about the image quality of the graphics.
They were a little. One
of
of the complaints was there's colors.
Right, well, that's the thing, is that Diablo, if you play Diablo 2, Diablo 2 is the only one I've played. I never played 1, right?
By the way, it's a terrible game.
It
was a terrible game when it came out.
Click. All right, we're done with that, right? The first level.
Wait a minute. No, it was a great game. It was the perfect implementation of ground pound down,
right.
I guess.
So the first level is a city, is a little village at night with this surrounding woodsy grassland, towns and caves that are all dark and evil, and there's evil people all about. Level 2, I think, was a dark, evil, rainforest where it rained. I don't remember exactly. Then, the final level was hell, where it was dark and fiery. And every level was, nighttime, dark, raining, hell, fire, brimstone, everything evil and dark. And the game had that kind of mood. And if you add colors to it, they're not complaining it looks too good. They're complaining
I saw a lot of people...
it doesn't have the same dark and evil all the time feeling that the old Diablo had.
That feeling came mostly from the fact of, just design limitations that they had, not so much.
Yeah, but that's...
And two, I mean, a lot of the complaints, people were, the things people were complaining about basically did boil down to, it looks too good. A lot of people were complaining that it was anti-aliased and that it looked smooth and that the animations were, smooth and didn't chop.
That is, someone saying it's too good. But It seems like the majority of the people are saying, why are there bright colors? Diablo should be dark and evil and look like hell and bad things all the time.
Now, the game designer and a lot of smarter people came back and said, one, these are mostly still screenshots, and if you played the game the way it looks in these fan-made screenshots, it would basically be unplayable. And the game, the way they designed it, is that way because that way you can actually play it, and it's a fun game, and it might be slightly more.
Wait, how is it a fun game? It's still
that's what they're claiming.
Ah, yeah.
It's not going to be a fun game.
A lot of people will think it's a fun game. They like WoW. They like Diablo. It's the same thing. It's like they made Diablo 3. I'm going to guarantee you this right now. It's basically going to be, right, a set of, WoW instances that you could play single player or multiplayer without a WoW account. and it's going to be the most incredibly polished WoW instances to ever exist. And that's all it's going to be. So if you like doing a WoW raid or whatever, Diablo 3 is going to be the most polished WoW raids in the universe. That's all it's going to be. It's going to be click, click, click on the bad guys, and eventually you win.
You know, I can't think if there's any other video game or board game or role-playing game news. I mean, nothing else really happened except for the fact that PAX is coming to the East Coast in 2010. Oh my fuck.
Oh my fuck. I mean, this is a news we kind of knew already, sort of, because they said it at MIT and they said it at some other places.
But I gotta talk about this.
There were hints dropping, but now they're like, okay, official announcement, fine.
Yeah. They haven't said where yet. However, I have an educated one. They're having it run by Reed Exhibitions, the people who did, the New York Comic Con, the New York Anime Festival, and
comics, anime, gaming. They got a trifecta.
The reason behind that is pretty much they don't have the time, the resources, the energy, or any of that to deal with doing another PAX on the East Coast.
I mean, could you run 2 cons of that size a year on your own? No. People have a hard enough time running Otakon once a year. They have a hard enough time running Katsucon once a year.
You know what? If I didn't have a day job, I think I could.
If I didn't have a day job, which is exactly why Reed Exhibitions is a good help, because their day job is run the conventions. Gabe and Tycho still have to make a comic every day, make merch, do the Child's Play, do the PAX 1, do everything else they do. So they don't really have time to do 2 conventions.
Now, we found out about this for real at Kineticon. So, of course, at every panel we did, we're like, by the way, PAX East Coast.
Thanks to my iPhone, I found out about it.
And everyone kept asking us, so where's it going to be? So, in case anyone hasn't figured this out or just is smart enough to look around and do some research, or if you're just not familiar with the East Coast, there are really only 3, at most 4 places it could conceivably be.
Well, that's assuming Northeast. If you went...
No. I'm assuming all, because Northeast, or at least middle north, like the middle of the East Coast, are the only viable places. If it's further south, most people aren't going to bother.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to North Carolina area. That's about as south as you can go. If you go more south than that, you pretty much have to go down to like Atlanta or Orlando to get a convention center.
Because most of these people coming to those cons, even in the south, are coming from the north anyway.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. As in my professional opinion, it can only be in either DC in their convention center, Baltimore at the BCC. Which
is the place where Otakon is.
It could conceivably be in Hartford, Connecticut, which wouldn't be the worst
That's
place.
Not big enough.
No, it isn't. But
not even close.
That's why that's like the 4th string, because
That's not even... It could be in Boston before it was in Hartford.
No, they'd probably go for Hartford before Boston.
I don't think so.
I'm talking about based on how far people are willing to travel, because remember...
Yeah, I'm talking about the space.
No, I'm talking about all the factors, because there are other factors. I mean, how many people do they actually expect to attend? And
I think there's going to be 30,000 plus people.
Scott, you're not letting me finish. I do too. I don't think they're going to expect that many people.
I think they know how many people are going to come.
No, I do not think that they expect that the East Coast PAX would, in its inaugural year, have more people than the West Coast PAX.
I think that they must expect that the East Coast PAX will have more than the West Coast PAX.
Now, why would they? I don't think that they know anything about East Coast conventions.
Because they have Reed Exhibitions doing, helping them out.
I don't think, but they... Yeah, they just announced. They probably said, "Reed, do our convention." Reed said, "Okay," and Reed's doing the. They don't care. They don't know. And Reed
they seem to say that they had a lot of say in what's going on, and Reed is just doing the logistics for him.
Yes, but at the same time, they wouldn't know, and Reed doesn't even really know, because Reed, they're probably going to want it to be in the Javits, which is probably the worst possible place it could be.
That's a really bad idea to put it in the Javits. I mean, I guess it has enough floor space for the exhibition hall.
No, there's no hotels for people to stay in. There's no easy way to get to the Javits. It would be a shitty con.
It would be a very shitty con.
So, but the thing is, that's probably one of the few places it could be, and there's a decent chance that's where it might end up. But
just because Reed Exhibitions is in love with that building.
But seriously, it can only really be in DC, Baltimore, or New York City. And honestly, if I were them, I would put it in the Baltimore Convention Center.
I also would, because, Otakon takes up that whole building and they have almost 30,000 people.
Plus, by 2010, the giant expansion to the BCC will be done, which is going to allow Otakon to expand to 30,000 plus easily.
Yeah, I think PAX could definitely use that entire building. And, if you look, instead of the dealer's room, they would have the exhibition room that could fit in there. And then
Plus,
they'd have
forget all
plenty
that.
of room for everything else.
Forget all the logistics and everything. I mean, the DC Convention Center is big enough, but it's also, for the kinds of cons that these are, a really bad layout. The Javits is almost as bad, but the DC Convention Center just wouldn't
Because the Javits is really only designed for the one big room kind of con. If you have, like, the auto show, it's a big room with big displays.
Well, there's more to it than that. I mean, anime and gaming cons have a lot of hotel to convention back and forth traffic. They have a lot more internal foot traffic. They have a lot of bursts of traffic. They have a lot of people hanging out in hallways. It's a totally different thing from every other kind of convention in the world. And the BCC is one of the few convention centers that really, really deals with it well.
Yeah, just because it has so many, it's wide, it's got hallways, it's got lots of separate rooms.
It's got multiple paths to get to most places.
Yeah. It's got, hotels are across the street directly.
Also, the BCC's escalators hold out better than any con center I've ever seen.
Yeah, you can walk to a place to eat.
Well, that's starting to change.
It is, but actually I was reading that some new places opened up. There's apparently a Chipotle next to the Hard Rock.
But there's no Fuddruckers anymore.
Nope.
May it burn in hell.
I'm going to eat at that Chipotle at least once.
But yeah, PAX 2010, East Coast. We work with Read Exhibitions of it because, New York Comic Con, New York Anime Festival. So we'll see if we can get some sort of scoop.
Oh, we're going to be scooping it up. There's no doubt.
I'm also going to try to talk to everyone involved and at least make my opinion known because seriously, I think Baltimore is the best choice. And I think that the Javits would really fundamentally hurt PAX East Coast.
I think if they had it in the Javits, it would bomb and then they might not do it again.
But here's my prediction. If it were in the Baltimore Convention Center in, say, May, that's probably the best time.
Yeah, definitely you want to do it April, May, because that way it won't conflict with pretty much anything. Don't put it in August with the other cons, right? That's just making a mess of everything conflicting. Go May when there's no other conventions going down. Sure, the kids are still in school a little bit, but it's on the East Coast. They don't have to go very far.
I would wager it would get 28,000 people. That is like the number I would put out as my number.
I'd say it could be as high as 35.
It could be, but I'm guessing 28,000. That is my absolute guess.
All right.
It could be higher.
I'm guessing actually 30 plus, definitely.
I don't know.
I don't think you understand how many people on the East Coast are like they hunger for the penny arcade action and they haven't gotten any.
I know, but I also know there are people who will wait a year.
Maybe.
Plus, remember, the East Coast was burned by the first New York Comic Con in a big way.
But that was a Comic Con. This is video gaming on the East Coast. Something that doesn't really exist. There hasn't been a video game convention anything over here ever, and there are lots and lots of video gamers and they hunger seriously. So this is like a brand new thing. They're gonna be like, holy shit, and poop their pants and go.
Run, coward, run.
Yes.
The other thing is that there is someone out here that they could tap in a big way if they're down in DC or Baltimore. And it's the other than us. It's the dude who supplies the classic arcade
the
cabinets
Videotopia guy
to Katsucon. Every year, we hang out in the video game room in Katsucon. We're staff there. We do shows. It's a big deal. And they have an arcade, and the arcade has like Root Beer Tapper and Zookeeper.
Yeah, that Videotopia guy, PAX could actually afford to probably get him to bring every game he has to PAX. The thing is, he would need to hire guys to temporarily repair all the machines.
PAX could cover that.
They could.
That guy's not that expensive.
He's not, but it'd be crazy awesome.
Oh my god. Yeah, we have to talk.
If he could set up all his machines at once.
Yeah, listen, so all of you out there, if you happen to know Messieurs Gabe and Tycho, not to say, listen to us, but we kind of know all the business about running an East Coast convention, and we could probably help in a big way. Anyway, things of the day. Again, all you new listeners, things of the day is a little bit we do. It's a late show. Late shows have to have bits, and we basically just talk about the funniest, coolest, weirdest, or whatever thing we've seen in the last day or so that might be at least somewhat related to the topic of the night.
Yep. So, should I go first?
I think you should.
All right, this isn't really gaming related, but that doesn't... well, unless you're talking about the game of life or the game of don't go to jail or, I guess, get out of jail free.
I'm real good at that first game.
Yeah. So this is a video of this. Pretty much, he's like a defense lawyer, professor. I'm not really sure, but he's definitely a defense lawyer type person. And he basically gives this. He talks really fast, and I don't think I like his personality. At least the idea I get of his personality.
Why?
From
Did you get the
video.
impression that he's a little sleazy?
I get the impression that he's sort of a fast talking sort of kind of guy.
He's a lawyer.
Yeah.
No offense to all our lawyer friends.
No, he definitely seems like, he has, I agree with it. I agree with everything he's saying. It's just his personality is a little bit grating. But anyway, the points he's making are great, which is he pretty much says, don't talk to the police under any circumstances, whether you're innocent, whether you're guilty, no matter what happens.
Well, there's one exception, though, that I do want to bring up, just in case. If you're witnessing a crime,
well, I mean, yeah,
you probably want to tell the police what you saw, as long as you're not a suspect.
Yeah, but he's pretty much saying, use the Fifth Amendment whenever possible, right? If you have Fifth Amendment rights, exercise them to the fullest extent, no matter the circumstances. Don't say anything unless you have to say something. Get a lawyer before you open your mouth about anything, and then talk only to the lawyer. And then he goes through a whole bunch of points of exactly why. The most interesting point he brought up, actually, was that really freaked me out was, we know that a lot of the people on death row, right, were pretty much, they didn't do it, and then they were later, proven to be not guilty by DNA evidence, right?
Yep.
25% of those people who were wrongly, who were found out later, and not just death row, but 25% of the people who were exonerated after the fact because of DNA evidence were people who confessed because they talked. They basically didn't use the Fifth Amendment. If they had used the Fifth Amendment, they wouldn't have been in jail. And they wouldn't have had to be exonerated by DNA evidence later. And they could have avoided jail and their lives could have been great, but they didn't use the Fifth Amendment, so they got fucked.
Yeah, basically it's just that you kind of have to protect your own rights, and because you can't be sure of a police officer in a situation, and because of the way the system is, you've got to hold on to your right. I mean, the case in point, the good example of if a police officer wants to search your car and you say no, you don't consent, and he doesn't have probable cause, but he decides to search it anyway, or demands that you open the trunk, or he's going to shoot it open or whatever. You got to just keep saying, I'm not going to resist because blah, 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 but I still do not consent to this search.
Yep. But anyway, the best part of the video, right, is actually, he talks really, I think maybe he's talking really fast, not just because he's a fast talker, but because he doesn't have a lot of time and he's trying to giving this other guy enough time to talk. And the other guy is actually a policeman, basically. But he's also he said they don't like the word interrogation. They use the word interview. Yeah. But he's interrogated, he says, thousands of people, at least hundreds, lots of people, right? Or interviewed hundreds or thousands of people over his years, 20 plus years as a police officer. And he pretty much comes up and you expect him to be like, disagreeing with the guy who just talked, saying, don't talk to the police. Well, here's the police to argue with me. And the cop comes up and he says, everything the defense lawyer said is absolutely correct. Don't say a thing. Here is how we turn what you say against you. Because remember, anything you say may be used against you in a court of law.
You know what?
There is no way anything you say can help you. It can only hurt you. So don't say anything.
Well, here's the thing. You want a good example of this? Remember that movie, My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah.
Good movie. Remember how one of the reasons they convict him is they sit him down, the police officers, and he doesn't know that they're trying to get him for murder. He thinks that they sped or something. He has no idea why he's in the police office. And then the cop's like, you killed the clerk. And he's like, I killed the clerk? And then in the courtroom, they read his confession. It's like, I said again, you killed the clerk. To which he responded, I killed the clerk.
Yep, exactly. So you should watch these two videos. And I don't know if anyone who's smart enough to be a Geeknights listener will have too many run-ins with the police other than maybe some traffic tickets.
Oh, yeah, traffic tickets.
Right.
We should do a show on how to get out of a traffic ticket because I've gotten out of About 60% of the ones I've been pulled over for.
The first thing this cop says when he gets up, he says, "People ask me how do I get out a speeding ticket?" He says, "Don't speed." So yeah, watch these two videos, and in your life, if it ever becomes necessary, hopefully it won't, but if it does, keep your mouth shut. And get a lawyer.
Here's the difference: unless you did it.
Well, no, he says even if you did, whether you did it or didn't do it, keep your mouth shut. Because look, if you talk to the police, right? This is why this video is so great. He says, look, let's say you did it, right? Of course you want to plead guilty to get a lesser sentence because you're not going to get out of it without Johnny Cochran, right? If there's a mountain of evidence.
But they won't give you the real plea bargain unless you actually talk to a lawyer who does all the business.
Right. If you just like, talk before your lawyer gets there, they're just going to run you through. If you just keep your mouth shut until your lawyer gets there, then you're going to get to bargain and get your better deal.
That is game theory for the South. But for, society, if you did it, confess. Asshole.
Yeah, just not right away. Wait until the lawyer gets there.
You want how to avoid having run-ins with the police?
Don't commit any crimes?
Maybe.
Of course, the thing is...
Or don't film police officers doing their duty. They hate that.
Well, the thing is, right, Rim, you know how we always talk about how basically there are so many laws that pretty much everything is illegal, and if a cop looks at you long enough or like drives behind you long enough, that they can always find a reason to pull you over no matter what.
If I don't know, murdered a bunch of... Well, I guess if I murdered a bunch of people, I'm crazy, so I'm not going to confess anyway. So I don't really have a good example.
These guys actually talk about how there are, so many laws that we can't count them. We don't know how many laws there are. And if you talk, they will go over everything you said, and they will find something illegal every time. Like he was talking about people who they got because they were in possession of lobsters. Because pretty much everything is they can always find something illegal, no matter what. So don't say anything, and you won't incriminate yourself for anything, because they don't decide, it's not like you go in and they're like, we're only looking for robbery. If you say you did something, no, they're looking for anything. If you broke any law, they got you. So
I have a Vigigame related thing of the day.
All right.
Tribes 2 is like the best.
Is it the bees?
No, not the bees.
It's not the bees.
Not the bees.
So it's not the bees.
It's not the bees. Oh my God, what is it? Oh my God, what is it? What is that? What is it?
It's not the bees.
Okay. So Tribes 2 is pretty much the best for team stateless never mind, I'm not gonna go into that again. Tribes 2 is like the best.
It's the best multiplayer FPS to ever exist.
It is the best team-based multiplayer, stateless, capture the flag.
Well, it is
FPS.
all those things, but what non-stateless, non-team-based multiplayer FPS is better? Nothing.
Well, I also said capture the flag.
What capture the flag FPS is better than...
Yeah, but I'm saying not, because it's a non-capture the flag game. I don't want to...
It is all those things,
I don't want to compare apples to oranges. That's like saying The Godfather is the best movie or video game ever made.
Well, there is a Godfather video game.
And it's not the best video game ever made.
No, but Tribes 2 is the best multiplayer FPS compared to all other varieties of multiplayer FPS.
Yeah, I don't know. NS is up there. But anyway.
NS is the second best multiplayer FPS.
Anyway, Tribes 2 was great. And this video basically showed, the game had vehicles and everything. I'm not going to talk. Just watch it if you thought Tribes 2 was awesome. And this shows you a dude who's one of the better Shrike pilots I've ever seen. Now, the thing to remember, if you're not too familiar with Tribes 2...
Go try to pilot the Shrike. It sucks. The thing just crashes all over the place.
Yeah, Tribes 2 could have been made better. Halo and a lot of games have learned how to do vehicles a lot better, but Tribes 2 did it first.
And Tribes, well, it wasn't the first game to ever have vehicles. I mean, Half-Life 1 had vehicles.
Those were not vehicles. Those were basically suicide machines.
They were vehicles.
However, I contend that the vehicles in Half-Life, in Counter-Strike in particular, were more fun than the vehicles in pretty any FPS today.
Jeepathon 2K!
That was like the best map ever.
We should get some of that going on. But anyway.
Nothing was more fun than being in a Jeep with 6 other guys, paras.
3 other guys.
Well, yeah, so a number of guys driving past another Jeep with an equal number of guys, all with paras, shooting at each other, having a riotous time, and then suddenly one of the Jeeps flips over and kills everyone in it randomly.
Yeah. The point is that Tribes 2, as great as it's an old game from like 2000, 2001, and the vehicles were busted because that was the best they could do in those days, and they were very hard to pilot. And here's a video of a guy piloting them like they're his car.
Now, the other cool thing is that if you're not familiar with Tribes, keep in mind that while these guys are piloting these vehicles all up, They're just dudes around the map fighting on foot at the same time.
Yep.
Anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. So we're gonna go kind of short because it's late. It's Tuesday. Tomorrow night we got a pack for Otakon.
Yep. So check this out. I've been looking in the DS homebrew scene for a while, right? There's all this huge hullabaloo, especially on the other side of the Pacific Ocean
Gazebo.
about the
Macadamia.
about the R4 and these things. But basically,
Hullabaloo.
yeah,
You
okay.
said hullabaloo. I don't know what the hell you were thinking.
That's fine. So, but basically, the deal is that people know how the DS works. The DS is not a complicated piece of hardware, right? The Nintendo DS. And it didn't take hackers a very long time. I mean, this technology has been around for years. Basically, what they do is they have this card that goes in. It looks like a DS cartridge, but you put a normal micro SD memory card in it. And you put that in your DS. And it boots on your DS. And then your DS you can run any software you want in your DS, not just games you buy at the store. So this includes, technically people write their own software and run it on the DS. You can make your own DS games. And people were doing this in GBA days too. They were making their own GBA games and putting them on, flash cards. You can go and download, NES and SNES ROMs and ROMs for other systems too. Like I guess, Sega Genesis and Master System and I guess maybe Commodore 64, who knows? And you have emulators that they wrote for the DS, and then you run these ROMs in the emulator on the DS, and it lets you take your NES and SNES games portable. And also what you can do is you can just put Nintendo DS or Game Boy ROMs on on the memory card, and then just play them on your DS without actually buying them. And so I've been curious about these things for a while, but the thing is that there were always trouble. You had to buy like a bunch of separate pieces. You had to flash your firmware on your DS. It was a whole bunch of trouble. I didn't want to brick my DS. It was a little risky. I was waiting for sort of the perfect solution. Something that didn't stick out the top of the DS, something that didn't cost a fortune.
Something that didn't completely eat the battery in like 10 minutes.
Well, I'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, I guess the answer to the begged question is that no, you didn't find a perfect one. Not even close.
Well, it's I'm going to tell you. So at Kineticon, I finally broke down and I bought the M3 DS Reel. I bought sort of like the ultimate one. It came with a little micro SD USB reader. It came with a rumble pack. It came with a GBA expansion slot. And it came with the M3 DS, the actual card itself, right? And the guy was talking it up. He's like, yeah, it's all just drag and drop all the stuff onto the memory card and it works. It was mostly true. So I get home, right? And here's what you got to know about these M3 DS Reels, or I guess the R4 or any of the other things, right? You get it. You got to have an SD memory card, right? I suggest getting a big one. I ordered a 4 gig micro SD because DS games are like 256 megs. So if you want to have more than one on there, you're going to need a lot of space.
Luckily, that sort of memory is getting cheaper and cheaper. So these things.
Yeah, I ordered a 4 gig micro SD HC from Newegg for I think like $14, maybe $17. So it's basically nothing. All right, so you put the memory card in there, right? And you put it in the DS, and it says, well, first, if you don't put a memory card in, it says no memory card. All right. So you put the memory card in. It says no system files found. You have to go online and get the system files and put them on the memory card.
Why?
That's how it works.
Still,
All right, so you get these system files and you just drag this folder onto your SD memory card. Now the system starts up, and the system has a bunch of built-in software. It has a built-in NES emulator, SNES emulator. It has media playing stuff for playing music and movies that are converted to the right format. It can play and Nintendo DS and GBA games, right? But it plays those natively. It doesn't emulate them or anything. It just sort of loads them into the memory of your DS and runs them as if you actually had the cartridge. And PDA stuff in there, whatever. And I tried out all these things. I even installed like alternative SNES emulators because really I wanted to sort of get some SNES on the go. And while they work, they don't work well. It really reminds me of sort of the DOS days. Not super DOS days because there's a GUI going on and it's a little bit easier than that, but everything is sort of hackish,
remember
not very polished.
The original GUI interface to Nesticle?
Yeah, I know. It is. It's a lot like the old Nesticle. Like the emulators don't work perfectly. Like in Super Metroid, I had to keep adjusting like the layers of sprites and backgrounds and which ones were on top of which other ones. Because like everything would look fine, but then I'd go in a door and Samus would be on top of the door. I'd be like, no, Samus is supposed to be in the door, so something's wrong. So
wow, that's even worse than the DOS days. I didn't really have problems like that often. Except except with like really crazy ROMs. You know what? Star Tropics, there's no way that's working.
No. But basically, the limitations of the DS hardware make a lot of these homebrew apps less than polished. They're not perfect. You know, like the PDA stuff and the media playing stuff. I mean, because I have an iPod and an iPhone, actually, that stuff is pretty much useless. But I could imagine if I was a high school kid and I didn't have an iPhone or an iPod or anything, that wouldn't be too bad. It would be worth my trouble and time to get that working. You know, especially if I had a big old SD card. But as it is, it's basically subpar. It's sort of like the internet on the Wii with the Opera browser. It's like, if you have a computer plugged into your TV, why would you ever use the Wii Opera browser? But if the Wii is the only thing plugged into your TV and you don't have a computer plugged into your TV, which I imagine is actually the case for most people.
Even though, you're geeks, you should have a computer plugged into your TV at this point.
The Wii Opera browser becomes sort of useful if you want to look at a web thing, or like I guess you can watch YouTube on it, right? Does that work now or does it not? I don't know.
I haven't even checked. I
haven't used it in forever, but that sort of thing. It does, if you want to do that, then that's a good way to go. So it has this PDA and media playing functionality. It's really only good if that's the only PDA media playing functionality that you have that's portable. If you have an iPod, it's useless. So the emulating is sort of hackish. I already said that. Another problem with it is that the battery life, it sort of sucks. I mean, DS, if you're playing off a real DS cartridge, the battery lasts for like fucking ever.
Yeah, like I'll go days and days and days, then suddenly, oh, my battery.
Yeah. I had a fully charged DS this morning. I played a game for about half the train ride. I played it for a little while at work because no one's at work now. They all went to North Carolina, at least all the other tech guys. And then I played it on the way home, and while the battery didn't die, the light was red all the way home. It was not good. I mean, I'm used to having the light green throughout the entire day. So that didn't please me very much. But it did play the game, for as long as I wanted to play it. So I guess that wasn't a problem. So really, they justify these DS homebrew cards saying, oh, we're making homebrew apps, which I can fully support. And they say, we're, taking games that aren't portable and making them portable, that, if we own them. And I'm like, that's justifiable in some way.
Because think back in the day, I wanted nothing more than to be able to carry an SNES game around with me.
Yeah, and this is a lot better than getting one of those guys who took an SNES and put it in a different box that's smaller. That's unpractical. So I can sort of support that, even though the software that does it is pretty shitty. The thing is, the only thing this card does well is play DS and GBA ROMs, and it does it perfectly because it's just taking the software and running it natively. Like, you put a GBA ROM in there, and it's as if you had the cartridge. You put a Nintendo DS ROM in there, it's as if you had the cartridge. It is absolutely perfect, except for the battery life, and it just works. And yeah, so on the one hand, I'm sort of because I've bought a lot of DS games in my day, a lot. So now that I don't have to buy any DS games because they're basically all free.
Oh, so you're just gonna start pirating everything?
I don't know. I'm sort of torn on this situation because on the one hand, it's like, well, I've always been able to afford DS games. Why? There's no reason for me to stop buying them now. And plus, if you buy them, you get the better battery life and.
And the Club Nintendo.
And the Club Nintendo and many other things going on.
And the box, which you keep and I long ago started throwing away.
Yeah. There's many reasons to buy this, But on the other hand, there's a lot of DS games that I sort of glanced at and never bought. Like, I sort of maybe wanted them, but I didn't really want them. And DS Rental, I mean, I guess, GameFly sort of does that, and some other places do it, but not really so much. I mean, I guess you can rent it from Blockbuster, but not really. So there's some DS games where I kind of thought about buying them, but didn't. And there's some DS games where I did buy them, and I sort of regret it a little bit. Like Dodgeball. I mean, we talked about Dodgeball. We did a whole show about it, but we haven't really played it since. It hasn't been getting much play. I sort of feel like maybe
Well, the thing is, the single-player game, like any dodgeball, there's no single player, and while I want to play it multiplayer, there aren't that many people to play it with.
Exactly. So it's sort of like, I probably shouldn't have bought that. It was, I probably didn't have to. And there's some other games I want to try out before I buy, and this sort of fills that purpose. It's like there's the good, and the other thing, here's the real thing about this I'm going to get to in a minute. First, there's a game that's out now called Etrian Odyssey 2. There was an Etrian Odyssey 1 for DS that I sort of missed. I sort of didn't find out about it until the sequel came out. And this is this game is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's this awesome game where you have this giant labyrinth, but you have to draw the map on the touchscreen. That's fucking awesome. So awesome, right? Problem, it's a typical JRPG level up kind of game. At the same time.
Yep.
Not awesome.
Now, we're not going to do a full review of that. I got to play it first, and Steph's got to play more.
But Alex actually bought the game, and he was playing it, and he sort of said basically what I thought, which was the mazing is pretty cool, but, there is this dungeon crawling bit, but the monsters are actually really hard. So, when I got this little, homebrew card for the DS, I went and I got this game, and actually, I'm kind of digging it, even though it's got this level up bit, because the maze bit sort of outshines it. And
the thing I love is the idea that the bosses aren't like normal bosses. I don't want to get into it, but I think
the bosses
really cool.
are just really annoying.
Really?
But
the way Alex described them, I thought they were awesome.
Well, you'll see. Basically, I sort of was able to learn that I kind of like this game. And the reason that I can tolerate this game is because the dungeon crawly bit is less of there are random encounters, but it's more a resource management thing and less a grind thing. It's like you don't have so much gold. You never have enough gold ever. You never have enough health ever. You never have enough anything. So you're not trying to beat the monsters to level up. You're just trying to survive and see as much of the maze as you can, and the monsters are draining your resources. And the fights are actually ways to sort of manage. You're not trying to beat the monsters effectively, even though that's not a bad way to go. You're trying to get through the maze and accomplish the quests and things and discover as much of the labyrinth as you can without running out of resources. And I was able to learn all this, that I kind of like this game from pirating it, basically. The other thing about this that I think is far more justifiable than, straight up piracy of DS games, right, is if you live in the US, you can just go online and download Japanese DS ROMs, and vice versa.
So have you touched any witches?
So, of course, I go online and
get the witch-touching game.
I'm like, I gotta get me a Japanese DS game
to touch.
And of course, the first one that I sort of come across, I don't know why, but of course, obviously,
he sought out.
If I'm gonna get a Japanese DS game,
it's gonna be a witch touching game.
It's gonna be Doki Doki Maho Shinpan 2 Witch Touching.
So, did you touch any witches?
Doki Doki Maho Shinpan, playing it was a lot like playing sort of a Tokimeki without the school sim. I walk around, characters talk to me. There's a whole lot of Japanese text I can't read.
You did not answer my question.
I'm not done.
Did you touch any witches?
I'll let you know.
This is the only thing we all want to know.
Well, you're not going to find out unless you let me tell the whole story. So, I'm playing, and you talk to people, and there's a whole lot of Japanese text, and you watch characters' reactions on the screen, and, it's all right. You're going through. You don't know what's going on because I don't speak Japanese, and there's a lot of kanji in there anyway. I can't even, not that I can read the hiraganas. And occasionally they'll give you a choice of 3 things to say, and I'll just pick one randomly that looks cool, and the characters will react, and I keep going around, and it's like I go to school, I touch things, like I look behind
what things?
Well, I look behind the blackboard, I find a clue. It's an investigation game, actually. You're going around trying to get clues, similar to Phoenix Wright, but not so similar. And the thing is, I played the game for like a good 30 minutes, didn't touch a single witch. There was not a single opportunity for witch touching. So even though this is the witch touching game, you gotta play a lot. I guess maybe knowing Japanese, I might have been able to touch witches sooner, but I did not arrive at a single witch-touching situation. It was all investigation, and
that's a little sad, but at the same time, it's oddly comforting.
Well, I think it's sort of like a porno. It's like, you get this plot the whole time, and there's a sex scene at the end.
But all you want to do is touch a witch.
I didn't want to actually play this game. I can't understand it or anything. I'm getting nothing out of playing it. The only reason I got the game was to basically
Touch witches.
see what the witch touching was all about so I could comment on it. But I have no idea what it's like to touch a witch.
I can tell you exactly what it's like. You touch a witch.
Yeah.
It is witch touching.
Right. So, yeah. So, I don't know what the final verdict is. I mean, I'm sort of torn about the justifiability of just pirating DS and GBA games. I mean, for some of the games, I feel it's okay because it's hard to get the games. Maybe they're out of print. Maybe they're old GBA games that aren't around anymore. You know, it's a little bit more justifiable. Just getting Etrian Odyssey 2, beating it and not playing it, feel a little bad. Maybe I'll go buy it, I'm thinking, because I really like it. And I'm thinking about starting over from the beginning anyway because I sort of fucked up and I didn't know what I was doing early on and I died a lot.
Yeah, no manual.
Yeah, no manual. It kind of sucks. So, you know, if you have a DS and you're like a high school kid, you should probably totally get one of these things, whichever one you can get your hands on. If you have money, and you have an iPod, you don't really need one of these things, but you could get it to sort of test the waters of DS and GBA games you're thinking about getting, maybe. You know, just sort of test them out. If you want to save a lot of money because you're poor, you should probably get one of these and you could have mad fun on your DS. I mean, sure, it's sort of hard to justify the piracy.
See, I guess
but
it
whatever,
seems like
you're poor.
The real point is there's very little use for these things other than piracy, so don't kid yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a pirating machine. The only things it does well are play DS and GBA games sort of natively, ROMs of DS and GBA games natively. It does a lot of other things. It doesn't do them well. It does them half-assed and hackedly, which a high schooler could tolerate. Maybe someone without a lot of money could tolerate. Someone without an iPod could tolerate. I can't tolerate it. I pretty much have, I played with it, used every feature on it. I'm pretty much only ever going to use it for DS and GBA games. And actually what I did is I went and I downloaded a bunch of old GBA games that are not easily available, and I've been trying to play those. Games that I would never pay money for and just want to see, like play them for 30 seconds. Like I played Mario Pinball for 30 seconds.
That's about all that was worth.
I played Pokemon Pinball for 30 seconds.
I'll bet that was worth the same 30 seconds.
Yeah, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! One of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games. Bad. That sort of thing, just to see what the deal is. And I think it was worth buying the price I paid for it. I think I paid $80. I don't know. Maybe I got ripped off. It doesn't really matter. I could afford it.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't buy it at the con. I'll hold out. I'm going to hold out until the technology gets better, until I can actually use it.
Well, that's the thing is this has been the same technology for a couple years now. It's not really going anywhere. It's sort of leveled out.
You know what? Maybe I'll just install Nesticle or, well, I guess modern
Well, what you can do is you can go get
on my laptop.
Yeah,
I'll just play ROMs on my laptop.
Yeah, you can just totally get a GBA or DS emulator for your computer and plug in a controller and go at it. If you don't want to, the only reason to do this is for the
touch witches.
Is for the DS-ness and the touch screeniness
and the touching of witches.
Yeah,
I think we're done. Tomorrow night coverage of Kineticon.
Yep, I'm gonna try the Wii Homebrew soon, and I'll give you a report on that after I play with it.
You mean a witch, which you're gonna touch?
I don't think there's any witch touching on the Wii.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Odeo on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.